What if I wasn't wearing a helmet? Can I still file a claim?
Absolutely. If the other driver was at fault in causing the crash, you can absolutely still file a claim even if you weren't wearing a helmet. The defense may potentially argue that your injuries were more severe because you weren't wearing a helmet and that you bear some responsibility for it. The fact you weren't wearing a helmet should absolutely not dissuade you from contacting an attorney about pursuing your personal injury claim.
Yeah, we get these questions quite often when people will call in, or else maybe they'll even ask one of us just, hey, what if I did this, or what if this happened, or what if that happened? Should I do this? Should I do that? The main thing that everybody needs to understand is that if there's an accident and you've been injured, or there's been damage to your car, damage to your property, or anything of that nature, contact an attorney. You always want to contact an attorney just to find out, what are my rights? What should be my next steps? Where do things go from here? You will probably be contacted by an insurance company, or you're going to contact your insurance company, but you want to make sure that you check out your rights and have somebody on your side to tell you what you should do and where things should go from there.
All right. Do motorcycle cases usually go to trial? Get settled.
The vast majority of motorcycle cases do not go to trial. Most motorcycle claims either resolve before litigation is necessary or during the litigation process. It is a very small percentage of motorcycle crash cases that are actually heard by a judge and jury and a verdict reached.
Yeah, and I think that from our perspective, whether we're dealing with a motorcycle injury or a car accident or any type of injury, it's hard to say what does and doesn't go to trial, but it really is going to depend upon how we look at your case and we get the facts and we do the research and we contact the insurance company or the person that may have been at fault or whoever it might be to determine how the case is going to move forward. We also talk to experts that get involved. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in your case other than just, hey, am I going to go to trial? Am I not going to go to trial? There's really a systematic approach to your case, and that's why it's very important to contact attorneys like ourselves at Turner Monahan so we can make sure that you start off on the right foot on what direction you should go with your case and how it should develop.
All right. What happens if the other driver says, I didn't see them?
Unfortunately, not seeing the motorcyclist is all too common a cause, and often the cause, of a motorcycle crash. I did not see them is usually not a defense in a motorcycle crash case. Every driver out there, whether you're driving a motorcycle, a commercial vehicle, or a passenger vehicle, has an obligation to maintain a proper lookout. And that includes looking out for motorcycles. So a person saying, I didn't see the motorcycle that was involved in the crash may actually help your case or your claim to show that that person was not maintaining the kind of safe driving practices and lookout that they should have been.
What happens if the accident was partly caused by poor road designs or loose gravel for a motorcycle?
So claims involving road hazard are very fact specific and have to be looked at early and by somebody who has experience in dealing with cases involving road defects or hazards. There are special rules, especially if the road was maintained by a governmental organization. There are special timing rules, and only certain kinds of claims can be brought. So you need somebody who's familiar with that, like those of us here at Turner Monahan who've handled those cases. There are also other hazards that are not necessarily made by the government entity that own the road. For example, construction that is ongoing on a roadway. That's often conducted by private contractors who very often fail to properly mark road hazards and properly barricade things, and that can contribute to accidents, both with motorcycles and with other vehicles.
Agreed.
How do you prove the car driver was at fault in a motorcycle accident?
I think it's almost impossible for you to know that. Like, that's impossible for us to say, how do you prove the other person? Everything is going to come down to very fact specific. So whatever occurs in your case, from the get-go, nobody can say, that is the stone that's going to take down Goliath right there, and that is the fact that's going to prove that they were wrong, or they didn't do this, or they didn't do that. In regards to whether or not your case is, you're going to be able to determine what the actual driver was at fault or not, it's going to be very fact specific, and that's something that we're going to have to get into as your case goes forward. It can't be just done from day one, or that it's just one fact as to why the driver's at fault.
And while that's true, it's important though to contact an attorney early, usually as soon as possible after a crash occurs, because that attorney can start securing the evidence you need for proving fault in your case. As the world gets more sophisticated with technology, that may mean downloading images from vehicles, and people think, well, I don't have a dash camera in my car, so there's no data in that vehicle, there's no video. But now most cars have cameras on them for backing up and pulling out of parking spaces, and depending on the vehicle and the make and the model, those sometimes can capture still images from the time of the wreck. Meanwhile, local businesses nearby may have surveillance video that can be obtained. There may be physical evidence on the roadway that, if it's not documented early on, can disappear. So you can't say out of the blue what exactly evidence may prove fault in any particular case, but it is important to retain an attorney like those of us here at Turner Monahan, who can jump on your case immediately and start securing that evidence and looking at all the potential avenues for finding evidence in order to prove fault.
Do motorcycle accidents get looked at differently because they're considered more risky of the vehicle, so it's their fault for driving it?
There are certainly defense attorneys who will make those arguments, and defendants who will make those arguments that, well, if he had been driving a car instead of a motorcycle, in this same crash, he wouldn't have been hurt as bad. That plays to certain prejudice of certain people, but it is not a legal defense. Motorcycles have just as much right to be on the roadway as any other car or truck, and people driving in other vehicles have to be just as aware of the presence of motorcycles as they do of any other vehicle. So it is not a bar to a claim or even a legal defense to say, oh, well, he was only hurt because he was riding a motorcycle.
What if the driver who hit me didn't have insurance at all?
So in that case, it's important to look at potential other sources of insurance. The simple fact is, most people who drive without insurance don't have assets to pay a judgment. But that doesn't mean that an injured motorcyclist doesn't have avenues to recover. First, and I recommend this to everyone, that if you're driving any kind of vehicle, you should have underinsured and uninsured motorist coverage, which will allow you to make a claim against your own insurance carrier to compensate you for your injuries. It's also important to look at potential other sources. Were you injured in a parking lot that was poorly designed so that potentially the store that owned the parking lot is responsible for your injuries? Were you injured in a construction zone because of how the barricades were placed? If so, potentially the construction contractor may be responsible. So while less clear sometimes than simply making a claim against the party that struck your motorcycle, there often are potential other avenues of recovery, though they may not be obvious.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what we were discussing earlier about contacting an attorney early. And again, you want to make sure that you contact attorneys like us here at Turner Monahan as early and as quickly as possible after there's an accident. Because as Matt was saying, there are extenuating, or there could be extenuating circumstances that do provide for recovery that you may not have any idea would be applicable to your case. And that's why we can take a look at your case with the experience we have of saying, hey, we need to look at this, or we need to look at that, or what about these facts, or what about those facts? And we can also make sure that we secure certain evidence that will allow us to see if there's other avenues to pursue, rather than just only look at the person who may be at fault.
How does somebody that has been in a motorcycle accident, crash, reach out to you?
It's pretty simple. We have our website, which is tumolaw.com, TUMOLAW.com. Our phone number also is 817-332-4477. We have offices in downtown Fort Worth, and we also have offices in downtown Cleburne. We do service and we handle cases all throughout the state of Texas. We are available almost 24/7. When you go to our website, you're able to click on a few links and get a lot of information. But if you'll contact us, there's about a 90% chance, if it's during normal hours that people are awake, or even if it could be in the middle of the night, somebody's probably going to get back to you very quickly and let you know where things stand and try to get you assisted as soon as possible.